Hello, everyone. So I'm Nithin, and welcome to SchoolQuizz.com. We'll be doing active and passive voice today. So let me take you through the basics. Look at this sentence, please. Let me write it down on the whiteboard. Give me a minute. Let me just write it down on the whiteboard. Yeah. So let me share the screen with you as well. Let me share the screen. Give me a minute. Yeah. Yes, look at the screen, please. So look at the sentence, please. The dog killed the rat. Now, very simple sentence, but this sentence has three components: the dog, which is the subject, the rat, which is the object, and killed, which is the verb. Now, why is the dog the subject? Because the dog did something. It is the doer of the action. So let me write that down. The dog is the doer of the action of killing. The action. The dog is the doer of the action, and the rat had something done to it. Right? The rat had something done to it. Right? So the rat is the object done to it. So the rat is the object because the rat had something done to it. So it was the receiver of the action, and the action is killing. Now, very often in many sentences, the subject is the doer of the action, but that is not always the case, right? Sometimes we put the subject the other way around. That means the subject is the receiver of the action. For example, I could say the rat, which is the subject, right? The rat, which is the subject, the which is the subject, the rat, right, was killed by the dog, was killed by the dog, was killed by the dog. I could say this as well, was killed by the dog. So the rat didn't do anything. It was the receiver of the action. So when the rat is the receiver of the action, right? So the so when so that becomes the passive. That becomes a passive voice. So you have to remember two rules. One, when the subject, the subject, when the subject of the sentence, when the subject of the sentence, the subject of the sentence is the doer, is of the sentence is the doer, is the doer of the action, of the action, right? Then we say that the verb is in the active voice. The verb is in the active voice. Verb is in the active voice. Right? That's the first rule you need to know. That's the first rule you need to know. And when the subject, right? So when the subject, let me write it down. When the subject of the sentence, when the subject of the sentence subject of the sentence is the receiver, of the action, then we say that the verb is in the passive voice. Then we say that the verb is in the passive voice. Is in the passive voice. That is what you need to understand. Now, let's look at some more examples of active voice and passive voice. So this is the active voice. This is the active voice. Lynette sang a song. Lynette sang a song because she is the doer of the action, singing. She's singing. So Lynette sang a song, right? Song is the object. So song is the receiver of the action. The passive voice would be, let me write it down for you. A song was sung by Lynette. Now look, the subject is the song, but it is the receiver of the action of singing, and Lynette is the doer of the action. So the sentence is inverted. The song is the subject, but it is receiving the action because Lynette is actually doing the singing. Don't forget that Lynette is actually doing the singing. So the doer of the action is Lynette, but it's the doer of the action is coming later on, right? So that becomes the passive voice. Another example, a policeman caught the thief. A policeman caught the thief. Now, policeman is the doer of the action of catching, and thief is the receiver of the action of catching, right? Of catching. Now, if I say a thief was caught by the policeman. So now look, the subject of the sentence is the thief, but he is the receiver of the action of catching. He's the receiver of the action of catching. So, right? So he's the object, he's the receiver of the action. So this becomes a voice in passive voice, a passive voice. Have you got that? Right. So another example, right? Another example. Let me give you one more example. The teacher taught the class. The teacher taught the class. Now the teacher is doing the action. So the teacher is the subject of the action, and the class is the receiver of the action of teaching, or the class is the object of the action of teaching. But I could very well write the class was taught by the teacher, I could very well say this. Now the class is the subject, but the doer of the action is the teacher, right? So that we inverted the sentence. Now the subject is now receiving the action. So that becomes the passive voice. So this was for today. I hope you'll all join www.schoolquiz.com for live online classes. Thank you once again. See you very, very soon.